All right, everyone, welcome to this show. I'm super excited today. We're going to be talking with Jacob Welch. Me and Jacob, we were part of the same onboarding cohort when I joined Microsoft about 2 years and a half ago. And the guy, it's amazing. He's super smart, super humble, down to earth, and I'm super excited to have him here tell his story because I know it's going to inspire a lot of people who's trying to transition to tech sales. Just listen carefully, make notes because you're about to hear have a really good time here from Jacob. So I'm bringing him to this stage now. Here we go. Hey, my man, welcome, Jacob.
Hey,
I'm good, man. Thanks so much for making the
how are
time. You're
you?
probably at work right now, I would guess.
Yes, yep. Just grabbed a
All
conference room at
right,
the
thank you so
Microsoft
much.
office here. So, yep.
So I'm super excited to have you here. I just made a quick introduction, but I was just gonna jump right in. I just want you first just at a real high level, just tell me about yourself. You don't need to talk about how you transition to tech sales yet, but just about yourself and what you do now. What are you doing currently doing right now?
Yeah. So, I'll give the sort of standard background that I do. Live down here in Dallas, Texas right now. So I'm out of the Dallas Fort Worth area. I'm an 8.5 year Army veteran. So I was in the United States Infantry for 5.5 years. Did Army recruiting for 3. Met my wife. Had our second child. And then eventually transitioned out. Went to work for Gartner for a little over 3 years, and then now I've
Mhm.
landed here, same training cohort as you were at Microsoft. So that's sort of the professional background. Been in sales now for
Wow, total 6 years. That's amazing.
almost 6 years.
All right, that
Yeah.
was good. Thanks so much for the quick intro. And so let's just dive right in. The main goal of this podcast is to answer one question only. If we can go, dive deep into what you do now, it's gonna be fun. But how did you land into tech sales, Jacob? How did you hack into tech sales? Can you go back a few years, 6 years, and tell us a little bit more about that? We want to hear.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was an interesting sort of sometimes I don't believe it when I think about it myself, but I was getting ready to transition out of the military. So I was stationed up in Seattle, Washington. I was full-time recruiter there. Got a went through a series of interviews
Interesting.
with Gartner on the recruiting side. So it was actually just to be a recruiter, which is what I was already doing. It was a ex infantry guy at Gartner who was also ex Army recruiter. So he's like, I know exactly your background and your work ethic. Like, we talked about where I'd been at from a results perspective, and it was pretty good. And only problem was the location was Florida. I wanted to go to Texas. So he said, hey, similar skill set. Don't know if you've thought about it. Like you could try out for
Interesting.
the sales team to be an account executive at Gartner. And I said, all right, I'm down for whatever. So I just went through that interview process. So it was another 5, 6 interviews. They flew me
Yeah.
down to the
Mhm.
Gartner office right here in Irving for a week. Got a crash course in sort of what their sales methodology was with a
Uh-huh.
bunch of other veterans. Um, and at the very end, you do an interview with the
Hmm.
VP, a little sales role play. That went well. I was given an offer, and then they gave me some money to move my family from Seattle to Dallas, and that was sort of how that all started, right? So I took the recruiting skill set and applied those same skills toward
Wow. See,
you
Gartner,
know sales.
you're talking like Gartner. Gartner. It's a huge sales organization.
It's a yeah, yes, yeah, very prestigious company, right? Very difficult to get into. Like I said, it was 6 interviews on the recruiting side, and then 6 phone interviews on the
Wow. I
sales side,
personally
and
have
then I had to
applied to
go do the
Gartner
in-person
before,
stuff.
and
So
I
it
never
was
got an
a
interview.
I think I had the edge being a veteran. They're very
Okay.
good at hiring veteran talent, and so that was um obviously I did well in the
Interesting.
interviews, or I wouldn't have
So
got any.
you brought
So,
up a really
but
good
yeah,
point. So I like to tell people all the time, you have to find a niche, you have to find a superpower, and like in your case, they were specifically hiring or they had some sort of a program for the military. Uh, Can you dive a little bit deeper on that? Is that it's something that they always have, or was just during that time? Does Microsoft has anything like
No, so yeah, they always have it. They were doing sort of this of the way they were doing the veteran one
that?
was special in the fact that they flew us in to the office and put us in front of the recruiters, sales enablement folks, some of the people in their SL&D department. So it was very involved. It was very cool. Said,
How
it was
many
a 3 day
people?
crash course. Like they were letting us talk to account executives. There was
Oh wow!
about, I'd say, 12 or 15 of us that were
Oh
there.
really?
Robert
Oh,
Washington was part of that cohort. Yeah, yeah.
oh
So the
damn,
guy who
man.
referred me here was a part of that cohort as well, right? So we all, yeah, I go all the way back to there with him.
Yeah.
So Robert's a fantastic guy. Yeah, we were in that same training cohort. We got hired and onboarded at the same time, different regions, and then obviously ended up at the same place again. But uh, yeah, so that was very involved. But what ended up working for me there was a lot of what I was doing as an Army recruiter was what you do in like a prospecting role anyway, right? I was doing 250 cold dials,
Mm,
150 emails a day, going out to high schools, colleges, setting up booths at job fairs, like all the normal stuff that you would do in various different sales roles. I was doing that as a recruiter, trying to recruit for 158 open positions in the Army, right? So everything from infantrymen and
wow.
truck drivers to intel and aviation pilots, and we put, our office put a guy into the Army band, like it's the whole gauntlet of jobs that were there. So you had to be
Uh,
pretty agnostic in terms of what your approach was. Just find the candidate, find where their best fit
interesting.
was, and then get them through that
Interesting. So
process as
that
quickly as possible. And
so you feel
yeah,
like your background, even though it was, the military background, you were able to quickly pivot because you were a recruiter. Or let's say if you were like in IT in the military, do you think it would be a easier transition to sales?
I mean, maybe, right. I think it all depends on what soft skills were you
Mm-hmm.
developing in whatever role it is, right? So I have the
Yeah.
experience from the military, so I'll speak to that one. As an infantryman and someone who's in the combat arms field, like whole job is very adverse, dealing with adverse conditions. When we were deployed to Afghanistan in
Oh,
uh, 2012, 2013, like you're out on a cop for 9 months, like living on a
mm,
fob, away from your family. It's a very sort of hard environment to be in. Um, you just pick up certain things like resilience, as an example. Um, and then as a recruiter, I got double down on that, right? Like a lot of sales and tech
mhm,
sales in general is getting told no a lot and getting very comfortable and okay with they're saying no to what I'm selling or
mm,
this idea, not to me as a person. Like once you can get that out of your
yeah.
mentality of like they're not saying no to me. They're just saying no right now, or no to this idea, or no to this product, or no to this solution, right? Being very comfortable getting just
Mm,
eating crow and getting no all the time.
interesting.
Like that was what recruiting did for me. As I did that for 3 years, right? And then certain things like challenging status quo, right? We have to do that with customers all the time. When I got to the Seattle recruiting battalion, I was told you can't go to this high school; they'll never let recruiters in. I said, bullshit. You're gonna let me in? And I reached out to the head of the special education department because I have a couple of brothers um, were special needs through high school, and I said, I want to volunteer in your classroom, and I can't recruit any of your children; they're all disqualified. I just want to volunteer in your classroom. Turned out
Uh,
he was also the head wrestling coach for Shorewood High School. So I went from that to being an assistant coach for the wrestling program
like
to getting
VIP.
a booth there every other week.
Mm,
And we were there at lunch every Thursday after that, right? So, but if I had just listened to what other people had said about that high school or that area, and it's the same thing in sales. They'll say,
mhm.
well, we've done this before, or we're never going to switch again. Like,
Like
okay, you say
or have
that.
a
Well,
bad
let's talk about it.
territory,
Let's
have bad.
find a way around that. Yeah. 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 It was a bad territory
Yeah.
versus a good territory. Like, nah, it is what you make of it, right? Yes, there are, there's not every account's going to be fantastic, but there's should be equal opportunity for every seller,
Wow.
right? In those, if territory management's doing what
Wow,
they're
that's
supposed to do
amazing.
and they're
And
paid good
I
money to
mean,
do that. So,
I have some
yeah.
background in the military, not to the extent that you have, not even close. My dad was in the Air Force, so I grew up in the military, and then I went to military high
Mm,
school, so I have some.
Yeah.
the discipline, 200 calls, 100 degrees for 3 months on the desert. Like I can make 300 calls a day, not a big deal.
Well, it wasn't fun,
Uh-huh.
right? I wasn't having a great time. But that was the job. So you do that at scale. Um, coming to somewhere like a Microsoft or any other tech vendor for that matter, and you go and do that
Uh-huh.
strategically with way more tools. It's the barrier to
Love it.
entry
I
is not
love
as
it.
big as I think people think it is, right? It's, do you have those soft skills? Are you coachable? Can you learn a process?
Hey, and
Drink
I
the
mean,
Kool-Aid, right?
you
Got to drink the
and
Kool-Aid.
seriously, you and Robert are, the time that I was at Microsoft, you guys are like, it's something to do with the military and Gartner together. Because it sounds like Gartner did really well for you guys to learn processes. You guys are, just doing your best. Great examples. So yeah, like I really, really like. I want to go back even a little bit more. Like, how did you hear? How did you? Oh, so you mentioned about a friend recommended you. Maybe I missed it, but how did? So you applied for that program online? Did your friend recommended you? How that happened? Did you have a resume?
No, no, no. So it was the recruiter. So he said, the recruiter said, if you want to go to Texas, the only openings are for sales
Mm-hmm.
roles. Are you open to a sales role? I said, yeah, let me hear it out. Right. So I was just open to the opportunity. I was not a previous seller before that. I hadn't even really been thinking about applying the recruiter set
Wow.
to sales until I started looking into it and going through the interview. So they started asking those questions around, that were,
Uh-huh.
I
Oh
was
yeah.
using recruiter stories to showcase what I could do as a seller. And once I started doing it, I said, oh, maybe I can do sales. Like, this doesn't, there's a little bit of nuance to it, but not much. Essentially, what I was doing was selling people on the army.
Yeah.
If I can do that, I
Yeah.
think I can sell
Totally.
software,
People
right?
like.
Um, there's a lot more upsides and a way less downsides for software than there is, for military service. That's a very difficult thing to do. So when I was going through that interview process, I realized that I was a seller already, right? And a lot of people in other roles kind of are. Sometimes you're selling a boss or a coworker on
Mm-hmm.
an idea or a process change. If you're doing
Yeah.
those things at scale, like, you're a seller, right? It's using those same persuasion techniques and interrelation, relationship building skills.
Totally.
That's what sales is, right? It's just, what are you selling? Are you selling a process change? Are you selling influence? Are you selling, you know, the army? Are you selling a financial, future?
Exactly.
Like, whatever that is, you're a seller. And so just sort of demystifying that, um, like you had to be born a seller to do that. Like, no, we all sell a little bit. I sell my wife on a
Great.
vacation that I want to do, and she's selling me on one, right? So we're both like, let's go see family, or let's go to Nevada, or let's go to, all of that is a negotiation. It's like so all of those things you do on a daily basis are related to selling. This is just being
Yeah.
intentional about it,
I love it.
and then
I
learning those
agree. I
processes
think
as you go
everyone
through the
is
role.
selling all the time. I feel like my kids are the best sellers. They're trying to close me every single hour, man. It's like,
Yeah, they're like, look,
we're
Dad,
gonna
if you
have for
get us
dinner. We're
this,
gonna do this. We're gonna do that. Yeah, it's closing,
yeah,
closing,
yeah,
closing,
yeah.
closing. I love it.
That's
Well,
right. Yeah, that's right.
I let me see. Wow, you told a little bit about your story. How do you get into tech sales? Okay, Gartner. Now, how did you transition from Gartner to Microsoft? How did you hack into Microsoft? Because we're talking about the number one, if not the biggest and largest, sales organization in the world, the best technologies and services. How did you hack into Microsoft? Tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, so, a big portion of that was my network. So when I was looking at making a move from Gartner to see what else was out there, I reached out to a bunch of
Mhm.
the folks that I had networked with at Gartner. So there was a bunch, two or three of the folks were either in my training class or were in that initial cohort in my training class, like Robert was. And so I reached out to Robert, reached out to a couple other friends of mine, and just said, "Hey, I'm looking to make a move." Um, and I think at the
Mhm.
time, if I can be vulnerable here, like, I was terrified of leaving. So I was like, I
Mhm.
don't know if the skill set I have is Like my only
Okay.
frame of reference was Gartner. So I didn't know, like, is this skill set even needed or valued or wanted out in the rest of the marketplace? And I talked to my friends who had left
Mhm.
Gartner onto other sales roles, and they're like, yes, absolutely it is. You're going to be okay. We'll help you out through this. And so I had a little bit of help from a lot of help from my network and folks. So that's one. Like, you need to know people outside of your company and network with the folks that are
Mhm.
there, because when they leave, they'll go to somewhere else, probably same role, right? Different company, maybe it's a different industry or field, but so I'd say network is like number one, right? And then when I reached out to Robert, there were some openings in SMC and enterprise, and by the time I got my application in, the ones for SMC were gone and they were for enterprise. And so Robert being just the
Yeah.
you know high performer he is, right? That helped in terms of kind of getting me through that initial front door, and then you're on your own, right? You got to interview well. You got to showcase your skills and the value you're going to bring to the organization and all of that. And so that was how I went from Gartner into into Microsoft. And I mean, I
Mhm.
was applying, to a bunch of different places. I was in a couple interview loops, um, and then
Perfect.
Microsoft
So
said
was
yes, so I came over
one
here.
friend, did he recommended you like send like a link, some sort of a link that you applied, or you just yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yep, yeah, he told me of the job opening, and what was cool was, the person I did the
Oh wow.
informational with is still my manager. So Patty Borders did an informational with me first, and then said, "Yeah, absolutely, let's have you apply for this role," right? So it was like a soft
Yeah.
intro informational just to understand my background, understand what the role was, and then we both said, "Hey, like, yeah, I'd like to do that," and she's like, "We'd like you to apply," and so went through that process, go through the formal interview loops, um, and then got the offer, background check done, and then
Wow. I hope
came
you
over
guys are
around
listening to
May
this because
2022.
he said something here that's super, super important. That not many people maybe noticed, but he spoke with the hiring manager even before the interview loops, and the hiring manager basically kind of vetted him for a good candidate, and then he went through the normal process. And but first he was recommended by a friend, right? So there's a friend recommendation here. That's an application through a friend, and there's a hiring manager speaking with him even before the interview process. Man, if you can do that, it's almost like halfway there. Would you say?
Yeah, well, you have to remember, right? Like, when there's a job opening at Microsoft, thousands of people apply. It might be up for 12 days. They will have thousands of applicants. So, you know, let's assume 50% of them are qualified. What's that differentiating factor that's going to get you into an interview loop versus someone else? It's going to be, is someone that's a current employee recommending you come onto the team? And do they have
Mm,
a relationship with that hiring manager? Or can they at least get you in front of them, right? So, yeah, I'd say it's a critical piece for super large organizations. Um, for places that are great for like early career, maybe you don't need that as much, right? But if you're looking at somewhere like a Microsoft, um, or equivalent like size company, yeah, you're probably going to have to know some people to get, to know which opportunities are open, not even just open, but which ones are good for you too. One of the things I help folks with, that ask me like, "Hey, I want to come on to
mm,
Microsoft." I'm like, what do you want to do?
yeah,
Right? Because the job description doesn't always equate. Like, a customer service
yeah,
rep for us isn't necessarily going to have the same roles and responsibilities or scope that they did at their previous company. So helping folks understand, that internal person can help you navigate all of the wide jobs that are going to be open across Microsoft, right? Because there's a huge amount of places you
yeah.
can go in this organization, different levels, whether it's SMC, whether it's enterprise, whether it's strats, right? So it's a very
100%.
complex ecosystem,
Yeah, I
and you
had no
need
idea.
an
I mean, I
insider to,
applied
to
and I
help you with
interviewed a
that.
bunch with Microsoft, and was able to get in, but I had no idea. Like once you were inside, you're like, oh my gosh, like there's all those layers and things and industries and
It's stressful. You try to like career map here,
yes,
and you're like, it's all just this amoeba of an organization, and you truly can go wherever you want. It's sort of the same thing when you come in. The other thing I would say is there's two strategies to getting into Microsoft. You can get in and just try to
Mm-hmm.
get any job, right? And then move and be successful and then move where you want. Or you can sort
Mm-hmm.
of target hunt the specific role you want. Both of those require different strategies. So if you're looking for a specific role in a specific department, that may take longer. You're going to need to find an inside person that's within an organization. If it's a job that doesn't have a lot of
Mm-hmm.
openings, you're going to have to probably be patient and wait for an opening on that team, right? Whereas, if you're like, hey, I don't care what job I do, if I'm qualified for it, I want to get it. That's it's much easier. You can sort of diversify out and sort of get in through quantity
Mm-hmm.
versus the quality, right? So multiple avenues to come in. So both options require different strategies and will require
Wow. Did
more
you
or
do some
less input
recruiting before?
from an
Also,
insider, right?
wow.
Yeah,
Like,
maybe I've done
speaking
a
like
little
a
bit of
true
that.
recruiter here. That's awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
Wow. That's like a master class here, guys. I can get at the transcript and we can build a course out of this interview here, how to get into, especially the big organizations, right? In tech sales. Now, not everyone's gonna be like you, Jacob. You went to Gartner and Microsoft. That was amazing.
No, it's a weird journey. I don't believe it
That
either when I look
was,
at it sometimes. I'm like, how did
oh,
this
that was
happen?
amazing.
Uh,
What recommendation do you have for people who are like, hey, I don't have that, a recruiting background. I'm not that strong. I don't feel as confident. Where do I start, right? Like, is that any hope? Anything that they can learn right now, or what do you recommend?
Yeah, I so the cool thing is, right? There's so much content, whether it's on LinkedIn, whether it's books. Go read some sales books. That might give you an
Mm-hmm.
inclination of this is something you even want to do, right? It's okay to not be in sales as well. You may start reading and doing the interviews and you're like, "Holy crap, this is like way more involved than I wanted to be." And there's all the stress of quota and you're responsible for millions, closing millions of dollars and
Mm-hmm.
it's a stressful job. It's not always for everyone. So I would say read sales books for sure. Um, Talk to folks that are in roles. So start networking and just ask, like, hey, I see that you're doing sales, at let's say like any other, you can say Microsoft. Like, I see that you're an SMC seller at Microsoft. Like, do you like that? Like, what do you like about that role? Could you get like, I'm thinking about getting into sales. Um, could you just like tell me about your role and just see if people give you the time, right? Not
Mm-hmm.
everyone will, but you'll find that one person that's like, absolutely, I'd love to meet with you for like 30 minutes to talk about it. So I would say that's another sort of avenue to go. And then if you're in an industry or you have a specific, let's say you really know finance, well, maybe you go find a tech vendor that sells finance technology, right? So have like an industry or a business line level of experience and then go learn the sales processes after, right? And just be super humble that you may have to come in and do like a BDR SDR role and just learn how to like do the hard prospecting, get those meetings and set those for sellers and then hopefully those sellers will mentor you as you try to move up within that organization to more of like an account executive role or business development role, right? So understanding sort of the structures and tiers of those roles, right, and sort of the levels that you play at. I think it's unrealistic to think you're going to come in and I'm going to be
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be a strategic account executive for X company or whatever. Like probably not going to happen right off the rip. So time when you're going to go in, but I'd say like yeah, industry experience. If you have a business line experience, right? So if you're someone who's done a ton of tooling or work in CRM tools or finance tools, go find a company that
Mm-hmm.
sells those and then go sell for them, right? Develop those sales chops and then you can keep growing your career from there. Maybe you've learned finance tools and that's cool, but you want to do more sales marketing technology. Cool. Go find a company that does, and so you can just start bouncing around and grow that skill set, and then refine the sales processes. Right? You're going to have different managers at different companies that have different methodologies and ways of doing stuff. You just got to
Perfect.
keep developing the skills. So I'd say like that should be like a starter for anybody, right? You don't have to have a ton of experience. Just start talking with people, network, read books, consume sales content on LinkedIn, um, and find out what background do you have that would be relevant to someone that
Love
sells
that.
something, and then go work
And
for
then we
them.
talk a lot about like soft skills, hard skills, and all that. I know like there's a lot of sales methodologies out there. Is there any specific one or even a specific book, maybe that you mentioned about books that comes to your mind that you recommend someone to? Hey, you probably should learn more about this as a hard skill. Something that you.
Yeah. So right now we've got an internal
Mm,
group that's reading Gap Selling. So Gap Selling is a great book to start with, right? Whether you're into sales or already in sales, or whether you're trying to, I would say Let's Get Real or Let's Not Play is another one.
challenging,
And then the Challenger Sale. So Gardner has very good sales
basically.
training, like probably best in class across the globe. One of the things that they base a lot of their training off of is Challenger sales. So me going to a customer with assumptions that I have of their business because I've done a ton of research. And it's okay if I'm
Mm,
wrong. I want you to correct me. So I'm assuming that your revenues are this, and that you spend this percentage on IT, and you guys are trying to do this based on your 10Ks or your quarterly filings. Um, and just showing up saying like, I have done a ton of work.
mm,
I just want 15 minutes to talk to you, confirm or deny this stuff is true, right? And then the big thing with that too is like time-based value adds, which I think is something um, folks need to leverage more. Like, what are every interaction you have should be of value to the person you're talking to, or
mm,
you don't need to have that conversation in sales, right? You should never meet with a customer just to like, hey, what's going on? How you doing? You should be bringing them something of value every time. So Challenger Sale, Gap Selling, Let's Get Real, Let's Not Play, like those go into great detail on like, if we're not actually solving a problem or trying to find out something that's painful or a gap in capability, then like we don't need to waste our time there. Because the biggest thing in sales is you could be
mm.
super busy but not very
True.
productive, right? There's a lot of activity you can do,
It's
but
moving the needle, right? It's
is
moving.
it leading to closed deals? And so yeah, so those three books are very good
Wow, that's
about
amazing.
sort of showcasing that and some of those skill sets, and Gap Selling in particular breaks down prospecting,
Oh,
breaks
I
down
need I need to get a hold
negotiating,
of
and
that
all of that
book
kind of stuff.
myself.
Yeah. It's a good one. We're doing it internally for um like a book club we have here at Microsoft, and so there's a group of us. It's more than a book club, but we're starting with books and talking. We're reading certain numbers of chapters. Tomorrow we're doing 4, 5, and 6 of that book, right? So what were our insights? What were our takeaways? Sharing those across our sales org. So going back to your network, like in sales, we're sort of like mercenaries for hire, right? You may work with people who are on your team that were at a competitor a year ago, and you may go to a competitor 2 years from now. It's just sort of how it works, and everyone shares best practices all the time. It's what makes being a seller awesome is that like no one's really selfish with what's working for
Yeah,
them. If it works for them, they're like, hey, this worked for me. Go ahead and try it, right? And so great community, great groups of people that all just
I
want
love
to
it.
make
And
everyone better all the time. So,
I'm making this
yeah, yeah,
podcast. I'm putting stuff on LinkedIn because I feel like there's space for everyone. You don't have to necessarily start big like Jacob. You can start. You can look. There's so many startups and SaaS companies who needs people to just that love the product and wants to represent the product and make a career out of it. So and I believe
yeah,
the as you move from organization to organization, the foundation is still there, right? You're just building up and never lose anything by moving around or different organizations, right?
yeah. And it's again, right? You got to sort of treat the job like sharpening a knife or a blade, right? You're gonna sharpen it, you're gonna go out and use those skills, and then hey, it gets dull. Like you gotta learn new things, you gotta resharpen the sword, and so you're constantly going through this evolution process of the thing that worked last year might not work this year, so you've got to go talk to folks who are being successful or try different things. So I'd say like to sort of cap it off when you talk about soft skills, like growth mindset, always be learning, right? There's ABCs and ABL, so always be closing and always be learning, right? And then always be prospecting. So you're always looking for new opportunities. You're trying to close the ones that you have or disqualify them and get them out of your, off of your agenda. And then you constantly have to learn. Nothing in today's technological world is
Yeah, things
consistent
have changed
for
the last
more than
year.
6 months. So if you're not constantly learning and,
And the
and,
way
and
people buy,
understanding
the way
that,
people
then you're
sell
going to
is
struggle.
also changing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All changes by generations, right? Like millennials now will do 80%
Mm,
of the buying process without talking to a salesperson. So by the time they talk to you, they already have an idea if they want it or not, right? That's far different than Gen Xers and the
mm.
generations before that, like the baby boomers, where they did want you to consult them and sort of walk them through that process and be sold, right? So as the generations go through, buyers have different
Man,
buying habits
I
now, and
could
so
dive
sellers
deep
have to
into
have
that one,
different
but I
selling
know we're
habits.
coming to a close. We might have to bring you back to
Yes,
maybe.
yes,
But I
maybe,
know it was
maybe.
hard to get you here today. So thanks so much, Jacob. Like, as a closing, I know we're getting close here.
No worries.
Uh, People who are on the fence, sometimes people worry about layoffs, tech sales, and all that. High risk, high return. What's your final word? Like, you transitioning to tech sales, making a career out of it, being successful. Final words here for someone who's like on the fence.
Yeah, I would say be open minded and get out of your own way about having to be like a technology expert of whatever you're selling, right? Most companies
Mm,
have the tech engineer that is going to handle the features and functions. You need to understand the sales process, the art of selling, and then just put the work in, right? So if you're someone who's got a high drive and you want a high net worth, like sales is probably the best avenue for you. Get out of your own way and just be super open minded, right? And if it doesn't work out, go back to doing what you were doing. It's totally fine. So yeah, be unemotional about getting into it, and be unemotional if you decide that it's not for you as well, right? So just
thank
get
you.
out there
Wow,
and
thank you,
see
thank
if
you
it works
so
for you.
much.
Yeah.
Also, thank you for being in the military. I forgot to say thanks for that. Me,
Oh,
you,
no
you,
worries.
and
No,
so many others
no,
giving,
appreciate it.
signing up your lives literally to keep us safe and help us here. Jacob, that was amazing. I'm super excited to release this to everyone and help the community of future tech sellers, hackers. That's what I'm calling because I know that it's hard to hack into it, and you
Absolutely, I
have to
like
learn the
it.
tricks and the code. So thanks so much for giving us
Yeah,
so much information. And appreciate it, man. Thank you. Thank you. Bye.
yeah, appreciate it. Have a good one. Bye.